Hey everybody, welcome back. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever it is that you happen to be in the world as we get going here this morning where I am, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, doing things a little bit early today because unfortunately, I have a dental appointment. Not looking forward to it at all. Already had some bad experiences with the dentist in the last week and a half. Things went very badly. They screwed things up. And now I'm going to a different place to try to get that fixed. And that is going to be at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon where I am. And that means that it would overlap. And I would not be able to do a normal broadcast. There's Dusty, everybody. Say hello, Dusty. Dusty, one of the strays. There we go. Legend says, now I see you. Some people are starting to trickle in here. Not sure how it'll go this early in the morning. I've only had to do it this early once before. Isn't that right, Dusty? We'll dig into the news in a few minutes. Again, if you are listening and not watching, this is Coffee Talk. So we are at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter, and Prepper University being simultaneously broadcast on Prepper University. I see some of the people that are popping in here. I see Helter is in here. I see Dragon is in here. I see Legends is in here. He says he's watching a lousy Kraft cheese ad. Well, ad revenue, what are you going to do? As long as it's on there, because it'll probably disappear. I'm sure I'll get a strike at some point, courtesy of ScrewTube. Cruising is here. It says grading and returning emails. But here, got an education-related subject that'll be coming up a little bit later if I have time to get to it. Oh, Dusty, you want to get down? Her brother's sitting down here, so I think she wants to go and play. And there we go. So interesting snippets in the news. And again, doing this early because of my my dental appointment. I did get copies of my x-rays, though. There it is. Because I wanted to bring them to the new dentist because I don't want another set of x-rays. The less you're exposed to x-rays, the better. There's Dusty there. As we are at the top of the morning hour, and we'll go ahead and get started here in a moment. And going to start off with another poll. And you all know I love picking on polls. I love picking on polls because of how incredibly misleading they are and how the media uses them to manipulate people. The news media loves using polls to manipulate people, and you can get a poll to say pretty much anything that you want it to. You can make a poll work. When you go to a polling service, you kind of tell them what you want the results to be, and they kind of make it happen, or as closely as possible. It's not that hard to mislead people with polls. And that's what we're going to open up with here. And it is a poll about, that's right, resident in thief, Joe Biden. And there's Bams. Bams says, talk about Maui to get your standard strike. Yeah, I know. Can't go against that narrative, can you? And there he is, looking confused. I don't know if there's a picture of him that doesn't. And this is from 1945. That's the name of the news service. And it says, America doesn't want to impeach Joe Biden. We don't want to impeach Joe Biden. No, poor old guy, poor old Uncle Joe, poor old grandpa. We don't want to impeach Joe Biden. It doesn't matter. Again, if you impeach him or not, nothing will come of it. It means nothing, apparently, to get impeached other than it's embarrassing. But according to this, America doesn't want that. So let's look at that. It says Joe Biden impeachment inquiry does not have broad support, with Republicans possibly preparing to launch an impeachment inquiry of President Joe Biden this fall. Such an impeachment isn't supported by nearly as many voters as Donald Trump's was. Well, that depends on who takes the poll. After 2.5 years of Republicans launching long shot resolutions to impeach President Biden, hey, they did it to Trump. House Speaker Kevin McCarthy has expressed openness to launching an impeachment inquiry this fall. The Speaker has been clear with his caucus that supporting an inquiry does not equal impeachment itself, but it still appears that impeachment will, to some degree, be on the agenda this fall. So it goes on here, and this is just talking about why they want to impeach them, but this isn't what I'm really interested in. I want to get down here where it says, what do the polls say? That's where I want to get my hooks into the story. It says, do voters believe that Biden should face the threat of impeachment? And again, it's not much of a threat. Every president that's been impeached, what's happened to them? Nothing. Those in the GOP base appear to, but it doesn't appear that the case among the general electorate, or that's the case. The Washington Post this week looked at the polling question. A recent Reuters PSOS poll found that 51% of Americans believe that Hunter Biden's legal issues are, quote, independent of an unrelated to his father's service as president. Ipsos also found that 39% of those surveyed support a Biden impeachment inquiry, while 38% oppose it. That's such fewer than supported Donald Trump's first impeachment inquiry, although his second happened too quickly for much polling to take place before it happened. Quote, clearly the consensus just isn't there for a Biden impeachment inquiry in the way it was for Trump. But that doesn't mean Republicans won't try to force the issue, the Post said. So what am I going to do? You already know what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to Reuters, and I'm going to look at the actual polling results. That's what I'm going to do, because I like looking at those. This is what people do not ever bother to do. They look at the news and they see a post like that and they say, oh, wow, 51% of Americans don't think that we should impeach Joe Biden, instead of doing the research for themselves. And the research is always pretty damning when you break it down. Now, here's all your basic breakdowns, and this is on Ipsos's page. This is their public findings. I don't care about any of this. This is what I care about at the very top. These are the results of a Reuters Ipsos poll conducted between June 20th and 21st of 2023. For this survey, a sample of 1,004 adults aged 18 plus from the continental U.S., Alaska, and Hawaii were interviewed online in English. So they talked to 1,004 hand-picked, cherry-picked individuals, and from that made the decision that 51% of Americans don't think that Joe Biden should be impeached. 1,004 people. How many people are in the United States? How many people are in the United States of voting age? Because that's really what it is they're talking about, 18 plus, they mean voting age is what that boils down to. So 1,004 people is their demographic for about what, 340 million registered, plus however many people are in the country either visiting or illegally. Nearly 400 million people in the US. You figure at least, yeah, and Nathan here says 360 million, give or take. Yeah. Of which how many are of voting age? And 1,004 is their demographic. And at that, 1,004 people that were handpicked, cherry-picked by their polling service to get as close to the result that they wanted as possible. This is why whenever I see a poll, especially a political one, I like to grab it and discuss it like this. Discuss it with people, because you're being misled. This is very misleading. The amount of people demographically that represents is astronomical. The percentage is at least, what, 60 decimal points below zero. That, 1,004 people is going to come out to what, 0.000002 or something insane like that of the population. And plus, again, they're handpicked, they're cherry-picked. The system uses their questions to determine who is going to get to the final questions. We've talked about this before, that they use the line of questioning to ferret out people who might be undesirable for the poll. Incredible. Cruising says sample size too small, sampling bias issue, leading questions, etc. Polls are crap. And Nathan says Trump team is selling mugshots and t-shirts. I would. That's brilliant. That's about as brilliant as the Biden campaign selling the dark Biden coffee mug, or the dark Brandon. They call it the dark Brandon coffee mug, and it's Biden on the mug. And when you pour something hot in it, the eyes start to glow red. Brilliant marketing. And same thing with the Trump. I would absolutely put that mess on a t-shirt, and I would turn it into a wanted poster, and I would say Donald Trump wanted for president. It's just smart marketing. And Bam says, well, here we had a poll of 1,000 and all of them wanted to join NATO. So now we are in NATO, and I'm not even joking. Oh, crap. And Nathan says also all sample size is skewed, like when they tried to test new Coke. Yeah. And I took the Pepsi challenge way back in the day, way back in the 80s. And what I remember from it is that one of the sodas was warm and flat. So naturally, you're going to pick the other one. And Cruising says no such thing as bad publicity with the right marketer. Very, very true. And speaking of Donald Trump here. Speaking of Donald Trump here, I'm going to show you the mugshot. He posed for it. I think he was having a good time. I don't think he was there 20 minutes. Let me go ahead and pull this up for you. And this is off of Forbes. This is a Forbes article. It says Donald Trump's mugshot released after arrest and booking at Fulton County Jail. Former President Donald Trump was booked and photographed at Fulton County Jail in Atlanta on Thursday, and his mugshot was released by county officials after his indictment on 13 felony charges for attempting to overturn his 2020 election loss in Georgia, which, again, every losing candidate in recent history in a presidential election has done this, as well as many, many gubernatorial electoral candidates that did not make it. And again, I got to pick on Stacey Abrams because she's done that in Georgia twice. Lost the Georgia election for the gubernatorial seat twice, and to this day denies it, and tied up the courts in frivolous lawsuits for months and months and months to get nowhere. Where's her booking photo? Anyway, here he is. That is totally posed for. That's perfect. That looks like it belongs on a t-shirt. And like I said, I would put it in black and white or sepia. Sepia would be good. So it would look like it's from the Old West. Wanted. And then on the bottom, for President Donald J. Trump, preferably alive. Oh, no. Cruising says, notice he doesn't look orange. No, he does not. Well, they do that to him. I think because they can filter people, and I've often picked on Ellen DeGeneres in this respect because she is very heavily filtered when you look at her on television or in photographs. I mean, she's filtered so much she looks like a damn teenager. But if you've seen actual photos of her, she looks like she's 90. She looks like, I think I said last time I brought it up, she looks like she's about to hand Snow White the apple. Says, key facts. Trump arrived in Atlanta Thursday evening to surrender himself to authorities, a process that took less than 30 minutes to complete. Yeah, I guessed right. Trump has been criminally charged for 4 times this year, twice at the federal level, once in New York and once in Georgia. But unlike in Trump's previous 3 arrests, officials from the Fulton County Sheriff's Office took a mugshot during the booking process, and they have avoided taking a mugshot because they knew that it would be spun. The smart thing to do, again, like Trump or hate him, just like the example I made about the dark Brandon coffee mugs that they're selling at the White House. Good spin will use that. A good marketing campaign will take this photo and run with it. People will buy this, even just for the nostalgia of the moment, whether they like him or not. Henry says that picture probably got him millions more in campaign donations. And Bam says, actually, that looks orange. It doesn't look that orange. Not really, but, I don't think it looks as bad as some of the ones I've seen. Dragon says, we all know he took time out of his day to practice that look in front of the mirror this morning. I would have. Let me see. What's going to work? I'm going to look stern. And Nathan says, all the charges are conspiracy. No one has any proof. Correct. Because it's not about actually trying to convict him. To convict him would be the biggest mistake they would ever make, because it throws the doors open. And it's something I've brought up many times. Throws the doors open for all former sitting presidents to be under investigation because they've all done something illegal or something questionable, at least, that you can speculate on or maybe even prove. So that it's a mistake to actually convict him, but they are trying to embarrass him. Helter says Trump deliberately tried to look very angry to stir his supporters to violence. Yeah, I'm sure that's what the press will say. I don't think that's what it is. I think he's trying to look stern for the mugshot because it's good for publicity. As we venture on into the next line in the news. And then Cruising here says, questionable at least, like ordering the murder of an American citizen without due process. Well, if you're government, you can do that. All you need is the right signature on the right piece of paper, and you can just run over any law you want. It's really kind of scary when you think about it. This is from ABC News, and it verifies now the U.S. will help train Ukrainian pilots on F-16s after all, because they said they weren't going to do that. Now apparently we are. We may as well just start dropping ground troops in there and get it over with, because that's the direction they're trying to bring us. They're trying to slowly ease us into it, like they did in World War II and like they did in Korea and like they did in Vietnam, where they did it inch by inch by inch. It says here, reading on, again, this is ABC News. If you're keeping track, the United States will be training Ukrainian pilots how to operate F-16 fighter aircraft after all, but only in support of the Netherlands and Denmark that will take the lead in the training of Ukrainian pilots. The Pentagon on Thursday announced that beginning in October, the U.S. will provide F-16 training to a small number of Ukrainian pilots and maintenance teams, in addition to the much larger number that will be trained in Europe. Yeah, saw that coming a mile away. And by the way, just wanted to remind everybody that I'm also on fistfulofradio.com. Usually I mention it when I get started, but fistfulofradio.com podcasting service out of Atlanta, Monday through Thursday at 4 and Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. And then who is this? Nathan says, was that you said war can only be declared by Congress, everything else is illegal? I don't remember. I might have said something like that. And whether it's illegal or not, if government did it, they can find a way around it. Like I said, all they need is the right signatures on the right pieces of paper. Technically, Congress is supposed to declare, but then again, the president's the commander in chief. You can find your way around it. FDR did, because the United States did not want to get involved in World War II. And he kept sending supplies and sending supplies and sending supplies and going around Congress and getting approval from Congress, only to find out that ships full of supplies were already docking in England. It's pretty messy. Excuse me. Bam says the ground troops are part of the plan when the planes don't work. And Henry says, watch, Americans will be flying those F-16s in a few months. Yeah, you're not going to train them and have them going any minute now. And Helter says it'll be years before Ukraine has combat-ready F-16 pilots. If it's not just the people flying the jets who need to be trained, maintainers, parts specialists, weapons handlers all have to be trained. That's true. And Cruising says they find their way around Congress declaring war by the president, declaring humanitarian crisis, and initiating an executive order for a police action. Yeah. I mean, there's ways to do it. There's ways to do it. This goes on to say Pentagon Press Secretary Brigadier General Pat Ryder told reporters that several Ukrainian pilots and dozens of Ukrainian aircraft maintenance personnel will begin training at Morris Air National Guard Base in Tucson, Arizona, after they receive English training in September at they can't even speak English. At Lacklard Air Force Base in San Antonio, Texas. So, and somehow they're going to learn English in a month or two, and then they're going to start getting their fighter jet training. Oh, crap. That is so far-fetched. They actually expect us to believe this is how it's going to go. Yeah, we'll make sure they learn English first real quick. You know, we'll get them Babel or something. And then we'll show them how to fly a jet real quick, and then throw them back into the Ukraine, and they'll be all good. Goodness, good night. That broke me up. That broke me up. Nathan says a lot of military gear sent to Ukraine is broken junk. Well, it's a good way to get rid of the surplus. And Dragon says the U.S. government typically announces these things officially after they're already well underway. Yeah, that's true. And Cruising says we need a law that requires any president that issues a troop deployment to foreign soil without a declaration of war to be present with those troops 183 days a year. That will never happen. That will never happen. Nathan says you think Afghans support this. Oh, Afghans love us. We left all that equipment there. Wow, I can't believe that. We're going to teach them English real quick. They're going to get English training in September, and then they're going to run over to get jet training with their broken maybe English. Quote, although some Ukrainian pilots have English language skills, we are anticipating that all the pilots coming to the United States will require some level of additional English language instruction, given the complexities and the specialized English that's required to fly these aircraft, said Ryder. They can't just use like Google language or something, put on a headset and translate. They don't have anyone who speaks Ukrainian in the military. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they get professional translators. That cracked me up. We're just going to rush them through this training. It'll be all right. That'll be okay. Unbelievable. They're going to end up having to use American pilots. That's what's going to happen. Then they can declare that, oh, this is taking too long because they can't really speak the language well and they're having trouble understanding pilot instruction. And so, reluctantly, we're going to have to send American pilots instead of the Ukrainian ones. And Bingo is here. Thanks for joining us here today, Bingo. It says, what's up, everyone? I don't know if you caught that. Just run that over once again really quickly. Apparently, we're going to be training Ukrainian pilots how to fly F-16 fighter jets now. But since they mostly can't speak English, we're going to have to teach them English first. So we're bringing them to Texas to learn English and then learn how to fly a jet, and that's going to work somehow. That's just a setup because, like I said, eventually they're gonna drop the bombshell that we're just gonna have to send American pilots because this is taking too long. Not that we ever intended to do that from the beginning, anyways. Here's another one on the Resident and Thief, Uncle Joe, sweet Uncle Joe, and this comes from the America Insider. It says, bombshell: Biden's alias Robert L. Peters received an email that CC'd Hunter about Ukraine. Because, they do all operate with alias emails, and now this is being exposed as well. A lot of these big political powerhouse characters. Oh, Freedom for All is here. He says, I am never notified when you're live. I'm sorry to hear that. I know ScrewTube messes around with people a lot. They remove comments. They cut off my videos. They remove videos. They sanction me. They give me strikes. They don't notify people. It's a nightmare, the way a lot of this operates. But getting into this article again, this is from the America Insider. It says, it's been widely reported that Joe Biden and 5 other top officials in the Obama administration used alias emails, including Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. Republicans have found that Biden's email alias is suspiciously connected to documents and communications involving Ukraine, where his son Hunter raked in millions through an influence peddling scheme. Congress has demanded that the National Archives and Records Administration, NARA, because everything needs an acronym, turn over all documents on the government network containing Biden's secret code names, which include Robert Peters, Robert Ware, and J.R.B. Ware. Robin, quote, likely refers to Joe's middle name, which is Robinette. Really, Robinette is his middle name. I was not aware of that. Continuing on, in 2016, Robert L. Peters received an email that CC'd Hunter Biden about Ukraine. The email contained an attachment that House investigators requested from the National Archives. It's currently unknown what is included in the attachment because when they get it, it's going to be redacted from here to Sunday. But investigators are determined to find out what Hunter's is CC'd on then Vice President Joe Biden's alias email discussing the Ukraine. A total of 27 emails found on Hunter Biden's laptop are linked to Joe Biden's Robert L. Peters alias. Big surprise. Big surprise. Bingo says, I shared an article the other day that there is American pilots already in Ukraine under the guise that they are mercs. Not surprising at all. Not surprising at all. Because they really, really want us involved in this. Because I guess we're supposed to show up Russia again, But at whose expense? How much is this costing? And when are we going to get to the point where instead of costing us tax dollars, it's going to cost us lives as well? And Dragon says, Joe Biden carrying on, quote, business as usual, as more and more of these damning revelations come into the light, reminds me of Nero fiddling while Rome burns. Yeah, well, Nero wasn't orchestrating all of it. He is. Helter says if he took steps to hide his identity, that means he knew what he was doing was illegal and was trying to hide it. Proving it is the other issue, though. And they can demand it from the National Archives, and the National Archives is in a position to refuse because he was vice president at the time, and they can say that it's classified. If they force the issue and they are able to get the National Archives to release the emails, they will be redacted. 80-90% of it is going to have black lines through it, and then they're going to have to go through that whole rigmarole. By the time they get it sorted out, Biden will no longer be president, and if they ever do pull him up for Congress, if they call Biden back to address Congress, he's going to be a blithering idiot, and they're going to say that he's not fit to be interviewed or stand trial or anything like it. Plausible deniability. Now they'll admit that he's senile. Now they'll admit that he has dementia. Something's wrong with him. Oh, well, he's not fit. He's lost his marbles. That's what'll happen. But they knew this was going on. And Obama as well, and Hillary as well, and a bunch of other top officials that had aliases that are connected to this. And what's going to happen? You're going to impeach him? We all know that doesn't work. Impeaching doesn't mean a damn thing. Impeaching doesn't work. It doesn't change anything. It doesn't help anything. It's a little embarrassing. It can be a little bit embarrassing, but do they really care? I wouldn't care. Yeah, punish me. It's like when you're at work and, oh, I'm going to have to write you up. Write me up. I don't give a damn if you write me up. Leave me alone. I'm not signing anything. It was like, oh, I need you to sign this because you're being written up because you're 2 minutes back late from your break. Bite me. I'm not signing a damn thing. Write me up all day. Waste your time if you want to, because that's all it really is. These people know it's a waste of time. And while we're on the subject of Biden, as we chug right along, and again, if you're listening and not watching it, this is Coffee Talk, and we are at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, and we share with Prepper University on YouTube. And you can find snippets of this and that at Coffee Talk Chat on Twitter. Or no, it's not even Twitter anymore. It's X now, right? I still say Twitter. But yeah, X, which has improved. I'll give them that. It is better now than it was, because I didn't bother with the service formerly known as Twitter, to quote Prince, paraphrase Prince, for years because it was a mess. Yeah, that's right, Cruising. Student loans. Cruising says, oh God, student loans again. Yeah, we're back on this. Nathan says, feel free to not obey the government. Quiet, quit them. I wish it was that easy, but they'll get you. And this is an article from Newsweek, and it is talking about the student loans, because that's one of his big push points. One of his big push points to try to attract votes. Oh, I'm going to take care of your student loans. And everybody's like, oh, free money. Something else I don't have to take responsibility for. And they think they're going to earn votes that way. It says Biden student debt cancellation update, Democrats issue warning. And we all know what the problem is with this. We all know what the problem is with this, and we'll touch on that a little bit. It says a group of 87 Democratic senators and representatives sent a letter to President Joe Biden on Wednesday imploring his administration to provide additional relief as federal student loan payments are set to resume October 1st. Because, of course, they were suspended. It says in June, the Supreme Court, as part of a 6-3 decision, struck down Biden's student loan forgiveness plan that would have affected over 43 million Americans by granting borrowers earning less than $125,000 a year up to $10,000 in debt relief. And it would have made $20,000 available to Pell Grant recipients from low-income households. Borrowers collectively owe over $1.6 trillion that they have no intention of paying back. I still have student loan debt. And I would fall into that category, and that would cover my student loan debt. But for me to accept this, which I have no choice in the matter if they do it, I'm asking for some other taxpayer to pay my student loan debt, and that's not fair. Continuing on, while loan payments will resume in October following a multi-year moratorium that began during the C virus pandemic under the Donald Trump administration and was continued by Biden, interest will begin to accrue on loans starting September 1st. The letter signed by Senator Elizabeth Warren, Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, Representative Ayanna Pressley, and others was delivered nearly on the 1-year anniversary of Biden announcing his intentions to cancel 10,000 of debt for low and middle income borrowers, a plan estimated to have wiped clean the debts of about 20 million borrowers, including nearly half of all Latino borrowers and 1 out of 4 Black borrowers. Oh, isn't that convenient? And again, who's going to pay for this? Who the hell's going to pay for this? Semper Fi has joined us. It's sorry I'm late, not a problem. And Cruising says if they wanted to solve this problem, the government would acquire all federal student loans back from Sally Mae, forgive all interest above 1% and cap it there, then deny loans for gender studies. Yeah, deny loans for things that are frivolous and pointless. Quote from this article, although the Supreme Court has chosen to stand in the way of your initial student loan debt relief plan, we recognize that as President of the United States, you have additional tools to provide relief. The letter reads, working and middle-class families need this relief to come as soon as possible. You want to help them? Stop taxing them to death with frivolous programs. We urge you to continually find ways to use your authority to bring down student debt, address the rising cost of college, and make post-secondary education affordable for all students who choose that path. How about you stop selling, as part of the so-called American dream, the idea of going to a higher learning institution, since this doesn't work for most people. A lot of people, they go to college, they go to university, they never use that degree. So it's like, what was the point? You know, and I've used this as an example before. I went to college, and there was a girl I went to college with. I want to say she was in like 3 or 4 of my classes. And sometime later, after college, she's working in a Starbucks. I saw her working in the Starbucks in a local Barnes and Noble in Topeka, Kansas, and talked to her a little bit. And it's like, well, what happened to the degree? Because she graduated, and she's like, yeah, I don't want to do any of that. Actually, I like this. I'm comfortable here. Well, then you wasted 2 years of your life and all that money. I didn't tell her that, but that's basically what it boils down to. She was never suited for it anyways. She got the degree. She didn't care. She spent all that money, or owes all that money. Got a degree in something. I don't even know what a degree was, to be honest. It was pointless. She could have been a barista the whole time. She seemed to enjoy it. You know what I mean? Not everybody's suited for it. Or as Dubois said, the world needs ditch diggers as well as doctors. That's a little harsh, but that's the reality of it. Not everybody's suited for college. Not everybody should waste their time. But the American dream is, oh, we got to send our kids to college. You really kind of don't. You really kind of don't. And a lot of young people are forced into that mindset, and they're not happy. Plus, the college experience in this country is really kind of dead. You know, the whole idea of going to college and living the college lifestyle and the campus lifestyle is dead now, because it's been transmogrified into something unrecognizable. Siler says, hi, David. Happy Friday. Thanks for the stream. It's my 24th birthday today, and fantastic stream as usual. Keep it up. Well, thank you very much, and happy birthday indeed. Hope you have a good day. And Helter said, simply forgiving student loan debt isn't enough. It doesn't address the root cause, which led to the current situation to begin with. And Cruising says, paying off loans for people just resets the counter and encourages the cost upward spiral of education. Yeah, and also, I mean, you want to cap how much colleges and universities can charge. That's one of the things that they want the president to do. A lot of institutions want the president to do, and the Supreme Court alluded to that. And that means that you have direct oversight over colleges and universities. And that's a dangerous precedence. The more things government is involved with, the more things they're going to screw up as they try to influence how things are done and how things are run. The public school system is a perfect example of that. Cruising says, then abuses those of us who weren't idiots. Yeah, going on to say. Dragon says, loan forgiveness sets the precedent that the government can be helpful for non-donors. And Keisha is here, says, hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us today, Keisha. But that is a terrible waste of time and money and taxpayer money. And it gives them the opportunity to worm their way into a system that they can oversee and control ultimately, like they have done with public school and like they are currently doing with churches in the United States through the 501c3 programs. Because if you got a 501c3 charity exemption from the government, it puts limitations on you. You've got to be careful, or you lose that status. And for a lot of these churches, that tax exempt charitable status, donation status that they get from the federal government is more important to them than anything else. More important to them than the Bible itself, because for many of these churches, it's a business. It is a business. Cruising says suspend DEI and non-academic activities departments in all levels of public schools, primary, secondary, and post-secondary. That will solve the administrative bloat and cut costs hugely. Another thing that will cut costs for colleges and universities is hiring celebrities to speak at functions. Because especially when they hire a politician to come and speak at the university or speak at graduation, it costs them hundreds of thousands of dollars. Again, former President Barack Obama gets paid an average of $400,000 per speaking engagement. So whenever you see him speaking at a college or a university, that is $400,000 plus from that college or university, from their funding, paying this man to come and talk for 15, 20 minutes. That money could be better spent on the university, on the campus, on the students, or to give a break to some of the students and some of the costs. And speaking of schools, that's our next subject here. And this comes from Family and Pets, which is a division of Microsoft News. And I thought this was interesting, and I wanted to talk about this a little bit. It says school attendance is tanking in the U.S., and it's a huge problem. You think so? And Semper Fi says, speaking of education, whatever happened to home economics and woodshop in high school? Yeah, thank you. Our son graduated in 2020, and that was never an option for him. No, they don't have home economics anymore. And that home economics used to be a huge, big deal. They even had vocational schools for home economics, and people would learn how to run a hotel. People would learn how to run things like that, pantries and whatever, catering services. Home economics was a big deal. They don't teach it anymore. They don't have woodshop. They don't have mechanics studies anymore, because a high school, if your kid just wasn't suited, they'd start putting them into vocational studies so that they could have some kind of profession or some kind of experience, at least working with their hands. They don't do it anymore. They don't do it anymore. But again, this is from Family and Pets off of Microsoft. It says, in a post-pandemic world, a great deal has changed for the entire global population. However, it seems that specifically our children's connection and desire to attend traditional in-person classes have also been severely affected. According to a recent study completed by Thomas D., a Stanford University professor, along with the Associated Press, found that an additional 6.5 million students have become chronically absent during the 2021-2022 school year in comparison to the 2018-2019 school year before the pandemic. The study collected data from all 40 states, or from 40 states, as well as Washington, D.C., and is an extremely comprehensive account of student absenteeism around the country. It found that more than 25% of students nationwide are now chronically absent, which means they missed more than 18 days throughout the year. Now, this is basically, they just counted absentees or marked absent students and compared them by year. Where are we here? The study, I read that. Absenteeism is a huge problem for the country's youth for several reasons. Absent students miss out on important instruction, meals, counseling, socialization, and of course, the knowledge they need to continue their education. All things that are useless in public school. Socialization, yeah. The socialization is bad for some of these kids. They mix with a group that they shouldn't be with. Meals, yeah, I mean, you're assuming that all kids don't eat. Counseling, yeah, don't get me started on counseling. I could go all over the place with this. Basically, they're not getting indoctrinated the way they used to. These kids were sent home, they stayed home. I do know, again, a couple of public school teachers in Georgia that talked about this. You know, they wouldn't let the kids in the schools. They're supposed to do the distance learning thing, and it doesn't work. The kids check in and log in and turn the computer on and wander off and go do whatever because they really don't give a damn. Most kids don't like school, don't want to go, and you gave them an excuse to ignore it. They got a taste of being away from the public school system, realized they like that better because they don't like being at school, and realized, at least smart enough to realize, hey, I'm not really getting anything out of being in school, and said, the hell with it. I'm not going to go. You'll graduate me anyways. What's the difference? Because, hey, no child left behind, right? Nathan says free time is the biggest obstacle for homeschooling. Public schools are mostly for government. Yeah, well, that's the biggest argument from homeschooling, because I've done homeschooling myself, and they say, well, they won't get to socialize with their peers. And my attitude is, I don't want to mix in with a lot of those kids, because a lot of those kids are pretty screwed up and will introduce really messy ideas, vulgar language, and sexuality, and all sorts of nasty things that I won't know about, that won't be explained properly. And the way to get around that with homeschooling is to make sure that they do interact with younger students. The way that I did it was through programs that involved being exposed to other children, putting them in a swimming class. You know, hey, the Guppies at the YMCA, he's swimming with his peers and hanging around with them twice a week. Putting him in a martial arts class, go bring him 3-4 days a week to regular classes, and he gets to hang around with those kids and exercise. Basically, that kind of stuff counts. Dragon says kids aren't being taught anything of importance. The school curriculum focuses on feelings and pronouns. And Cruising says micro schools working with neighborhood parent groups seems like a good solution to this. Essentially, a return to one-room schoolhouses with a modern slant. But yeah, I mean, and I hated school. And this is one of the, between my personal experience as a student, my personal experience as a parent with a child / children in public school and having to take them out because of how bad it was, and homeschooling them, and my personal experience working with schools and working with the Juvenile Justice Authority, it's a disaster. My entire school, and remember, I went to school in the 70s and 80s, and it was a mess then. And my entire public school experience is one big blur. I don't remember hardly anything from it, except going and coming, unless something really bad happened. And then that memory will jump out. You know, I had a fight, or, you know, whatever, or something like that. I personally remember. Otherwise, it's a complete blur, because it was a complete waste of time. And the majority of, I guess, what you would call my higher learning, I did on my own, because I just liked to read. Essentially, I was a good reader, and then I became a good writer, but I didn't learn any of that in public school. It was a waste. And that's tragic. That's tragic. I don't think I've ever talked to anyone, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe you had a good experience. I don't think I've ever talked to anyone that said, yeah, I loved going to school. Everybody's like, yeah, it was okay, I guess. You know, that's usually the answer, or they hated it. And that's in my personal experience. Like I said, maybe somebody watching or listening had a different experience and they actually liked it, and that's fine. You know, I'm not trying to take that from you, but it is what it is. These kids are realizing, wow, it's a waste, and I'm going to graduate anyway. Who gives a crap? I'll just stay home. I'll just stay my ass home. I'll just go do something else, because who cares? And now they want to act like it's a big problem. Maybe if you actually taught the kids and worked with the kids, instead of trying to program them with sociopolitics all day as early as kindergarten, you wouldn't have a problem. Bam says, I remember most of the teachers being clinically insane. I see. I mean, I remember, again, I went to Montessori school for 1 year before kindergarten. I don't know how that happened. Okay. I don't know how I ended up in a Montessori school, but man, I remember that school. I remember the names of the teachers. How old was I? 4, 5? And that's your earliest memories. Um, it's hard to remember things from being that young. This is why I hate it when people say, oh, I always knew, even from the time I was like 2 years old, that I was actually a woman or I was gay. And it's like, you don't remember what you were doing. Most people can't remember anything before first grade. Just your brain doesn't work that way. But I digress because that's going in a different direction. I remember being in Montessori school. I remember Mr. Punzak, and I remember him playing the zither. He had, he did instruments and he did things like that. I remember them teaching me to tie my shoes. I remember lunchtime, because you have to serve yourself and you have to put your own food together and pour your own drinks. They don't do it for you. It's part of it's part of the curriculum for you to learn to do things for yourself. I remember going to the beach. I remember the stacking blocks. I remember the turtle in the classroom. I remember everything. Kindergarten, I don't know what the hell happened in kindergarten when I went to kindergarten. I remember which school it was, but I don't remember the teacher. I don't remember the kids. I don't remember what we did. I don't know what the hell I did in kindergarten, but I remember Montessori because it was a better experience, because they actually taught you. Cruising says that they are a teacher, of course. They hated school. It says, am a teacher, hated school. The few good teachers made me feel like I could make a difference and reduce the number of dumb you-know-whats in the world. No one did me the service of curing me of that delusion. And Cynical says, I went to a summer camp last month. They were literally teaching feminist and Marxist ideology. God, you got it in everything now. It's insane. And the Jericho says, I was shocked when I found out with my kids, their schools don't do spelling tests anymore. I got all hundreds on every test. I can spell any word. Nowadays, people can't tell there from there. And he spells two different types of there, and they apostrophe re. No, they don't know the difference. They don't know the difference. You know what I see also a lot of is too and to being interchanged, and people don't know the difference because they rely on spell check for everything. They don't have to think. Bam says, I have memories starting 2 years old. That's unique. And the Jericho says, they gave spelling bees, sure, but spelling tests drilled words into our heads with comprehension, sentencing, and definitions. I was in school from 96 to 2012. Really? I'm surprised they were still doing it then. And Semper Fi says, if I would have missed a day of school and I wasn't sick, my dad would have whooped my butt. At 16, I was working, playing sports, and working. A lot of kids today have no family system to challenge them. Yeah. And they don't have to work, and they don't want to work, and they don't want to go to school. They just want to hang out. Which is, it makes me think of, oh God, what is his name? From South Park, the teacher. Somebody knows who that is. South Park used to be good. It was interesting in the first couple of seasons, but it kept lowering the bar and getting raunchier and raunchier, and I can't even look at it now. Mr. Garrison, right? It was Mr. Garrison, and there was an episode where he wanted to get a nose job, and the nose job made him look like David Hasselhoff. And he says, now I can do what I've always wanted to do, just hang out on the corner and screw hot chicks. Thank you, Ms. Semper Fi, says Mr. Garrison. But yeah, I'm glad somebody else remembered. As we progress into the next topic, which is kind of a sort of a tie-in, we've been talking about this a little bit off and on, and this comes from National Review, and it's talking about Maryland. Cruising says, and I'll read one more comment, leftists keep crying at the board meetings to get the culture war out of school while being ignorant that it's been there for 30 years unchallenged. They can't even see the ideology in the curriculum. Yeah, it's been slowly building up for a long time, and nobody resisted it when they could have stopped it. And now you want them to do a complete 180, and it's not that simple. It's really not that simple. But we're back in Maryland here because, there's been a lot going on in Maryland, and Maryland is saying that you can't They changed the rule. A few states have done this, and a few school districts have done this. You can opt out of certain studies, social studies that you don't want your children to be to deal with, and they've been taking away that parent's privilege, legally challenging it. It says, this is from, again, the National Review. It says Maryland school district charges parents concerned about alphabet curriculum, $18,000 for public records. Incredible. It says Maryland's largest school district will charge the parental rights group Parents Defending Education $18,290.96 to obtain public records of correspondence about the district's opt-out policy. Remember, the key phrasing there, public records. Outrage over Montgomery County Public Schools opt-out policy began in May when the district banned previously allowed opt-out measures for its gender and sexuality curriculums. Parents filed a lawsuit with Beckett Law soon after, asking the district to reinstate its opt-out policy. The district's current guidelines violate the parents' inalienable and constitutionally protected right to control the religious upbringing of their children, especially on sensitive issues concerning family life and human sexuality, lawyers say. A judge is set to issue an injunction by August 28th, the first day of school, that will determine if students can opt out of the curriculum during the 2023-2024 school year. And you remember what happened here was some astronomical number of parents in the school district opted out. More than 90% were like, if I remember this correctly, and if I'm wrong, put the number out there. I was more than 90% of them said, I don't want my kid learning that. I opt out on a religious standing. And so the school board changed the rule to take away their ability to opt their students out. And that's why they're being sued. And now they want the public records and correspondence on that subject. And they want to charge them for it more than $18,000 for public records that they should have access to anyways. It's a dirty, underhanded way to slow down the process because, of course, who's going to come up with that money? Who's going to come up with that money? Legend says, I remember they were doing transmogrification episodes back in the 2000s. Kyle's dad wanted to be a dolphin. Yeah, and they talked about the futility of that is why. Because when he was turned, I remember that episode, he was turned into a dolphin. Then he says, look at me, I'm a freak. You can't just decide to get surgery and become whatever the hell you want. It doesn't work, was the message there. Because as we've talked about many times here, and it's something that the media doesn't like you talking about, and I'll probably get a strike for it, is that these surgeries are irreversible. You really can't fix it once it's been done. You can cosmetically try to adjust it if you decide, okay, this isn't for me. I'm not what I thought I was. This isn't working. I'm not taking the pills anymore. I want to fix this. You can't fix it. There's permanent damage that's been done. And Bam says Mr. Garrison is an average respiration of a teacher. Okay. And John says cat friend. I guess that means, unless I'm reading it wrong. But yeah, John is here. You're a little late, John, but that's okay. And this will be saved. Of course, you should be able to find it in the archives unless they completely remove it, which fortunately they haven't done yet. They just give it a yellow strike. And I'll just have to suck it up. And also, you could find me again on fistfulofradio.com. And Freedom for All says, are muck boots snake bite proof? I'm not sure, actually. I'm not sure. And then Keisha says, I saw a video of female to male transistor, and she was getting male pattern baldness and was mad. Wow. That's weird. And Cruising says there's an ongoing effort by a group here locally I'm fighting against. They want to set libraries to default open access instead of defaulted restricted access to mature content to bypass parents. Well, that also it gives these young people access to pornography and other things, which is why that's there in the first place. It's You already know. I mean, you already know, especially if you're an educator or teacher, that there's a reason why that's in place. The library is acting as a proxy for parents who aren't there to restrict little Johnny from looking at titties if he wants to. And you should have age restricted content at the library, or age appropriate content. This is why there's a children's section and a DVD section and an adult literature section, and so on and so on. Personally, I don't think anything pornographic should be at the library anyways, but that's my opinion of it. That's my opinion of it. Well, Freedom for All, they have Sabatons that you can buy to put over your boots to make them snake bite proof. Really, all it is a flat surface, because venomous snakes, their fangs are curved because they hook into the skin. So if they hit something flat, they skim off. It's just like a really, really thin sheet of metal that's in those to prevent them from getting their hooks in. That's really all it takes. But there we go. That's what's in the news today, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll go ahead and wrap up for the day. Thank you all for joining us. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live on YouTube, also simultaneously broadcasting on Prepper University on YouTube. Cruising says you said Sabaton, and I got excited that you were talking about the band. Then I realized it was the Muck Boot covers. Yeah, Sabatons go on your shins, gauntlets go on your arms. And you can also find me on fistfulofradio.com. That's fistfulofradio.com, Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon Eastern Standard Time. So please do check that out if you get the chance, and take a look at some of the other things they got going on there. Maybe you'll find something interesting. So again, thank you for everybody for joining us. I got to start getting ready for my my dental appointment coming up here shortly. I see Tom is there. Hello. Sorry you're so late, Tom. I'm signing off, but the stream will be saved and you can check it out anytime, hopefully, as I get ready for my dental appointment. And then we'll be back to our normal broadcast time, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That is on YouTube anyways, come Monday. So again, thanks everybody. And we will see you again soon.